This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Welcome to the RuPaul's Drag Race Recap Show for All-Star Season 9, Episode 9, titled Rosemarie's Baby Shower, the Rusical. My name is Joe Batanz, and I am joined, as always, by one pregnant I couldn't think of one pregnant From the fine. Podcast pod is my co-pilot. Please say...
Holy guacamole! Guacamole!
to Mr. Taylor, the Latte Boy.
Hey, Joe. How are you?
Not only, I couldn't even find a clip 0 for this episode. I mean, that was the best I could do. Well, also, I don't know if you're having this, and maybe there's other people who are having this issue with Paramount Plus. Oh, by the way, Taylor Latte Boy, everybody. But,
Hi.
Is your Paramount Plus on your Apple? Do you use Apple TV to watch it?
Yes.
Does it do that thing where you can't pause it? If you do, it starts all over again?
No, I haven't had that.
It's weird. I know it's common because I went online because the one here, the TV in my office does that. The one in my bedroom does not do that. So anytime I'm watching, but I wish it was the opposite. I'm never on Paramount Plus in my bedroom. So what happens is if I have to pause a show for any reason, I have to start there's a whole process to it. I fucking hate that app. Anyway,
it's a horrible interface. Paramount Plus is terrible.
By the way, guys, this is my birthday weekend. We just recorded Just Between Us Girls, where Taylor talked about himself the whole time and never asked me about my birthday.
Because I didn't get a chance to because we had technical issues. Did
we, though? And... And
technically, I don't care about your birthday.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, I'll tell you right now, there was nothing to it, and that's the way I like it. I did nothing. I started a replay of Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally spent the day very quiet. Spent the entire day playing Breath of the Wild. I wish I would have planned that for my birthday, but I didn't. It just happened to be I just started this week, and it was glorious. And then my brother and his family came over in the evening. They were here for a few hours. We cooked up some hamburgers, some hot dogs, had a nice time, hung out. They went home. I played more Breath of the Wild, and it was a great birthday all around.
That sounds like a really nice adult birthday.
Yes. And then, I'm having for my birthday this year, I'm having a series of small events, like with only a few people. So tomorrow I'm having 5 people over for a nice little dinner. Then in mid-July, I'm having a thing with some other friends. And then in August, I'm doing something with family, like extended family. That won't be as small, but it'll still be on the smaller side. And so that's what I'm choosing to do things. I don't like big parties. I feel like I don't have a good time. It's almost like being at a wedding where like my time is stretched. And anyway, we didn't talk about this in Just Between Us Girls. This would have been Just Between Us Girls. But Taylor talked about himself. And if you want to hear all about Taylor, you can go to Just Between Us Girls, join at patreon.com/afterthoughtmedia and join the executive tier level and above. Remember, you can always do a 7-day free trial if you're not sure what I'm talking about. You can also scroll right up if you're listening to Apple Podcasts, you can scroll right up there and subscribe there. Also, I have to give another plug for the tea. People are telling, what's really funny is because I think the show is not so niche. The tea, I'm talking about the tea. It's more general population. It appeals to a general gay population, not just people who watch RuPaul's Drag Race. Because of that, I'm counting a lot of people who are like, it's actually kind of scary if I'm being honest with you. A lot of people who are like, oh, I started listening to the tea and I told this person about it. I'm like, some of them I know. And I'm like, oh no, it's not good. But like I said, the tea, it's out there. It's good. Please listen to it. I'm telling you guys, it is a good. People are like, Robert, actually, who in the past on this show said, oh, the tea's really good. Now we found out he lied because he just drove back from San Francisco. He's like, the tea's really funny.
Oh, caught in a lie, was he?
Yeah, well, look, Robert Mata and lie. Oh, I'm going to get a fucking phone call right now. Josito, what's this line? And I'm not going to do the AI Robert because let me go to the next part. I'm going to tell you guys. It's my birthday weekend. I have people coming over tomorrow. We're recording this on a Friday. Today's episode, the one time this year, is live to tape. Whatever happens, happens.
Yes. It's Drag Race Recap Raw.
Drag Race Recap Raw. Okay? Whatever. I'm not going to do it because, I edit. Ooh. You see? That would have usually. I didn't even do that on purpose. I put down. Lori, for my birthday, gave me a water bottle that says Sloppy to Poppy, and I showed it to Taylor during Just Between Us Girls, and I put it down, and now I just kicked it over. In an edited show, I would have taken that out, but I'm not gonna because this is not edited.
Yeah.
I will say Riverside somewhere said that they're because most of the editing I do is people talking over each other, crosstalk. And I guess they're working on some sort of AI technology to fix that. If they can do that, man, it's over for all you guys. All right. This week, the girls... I don't know what that means. This week, the girls performing a Rusical, Jorgeous and Shannel come out on top, win a badge for themselves, and one each to give away, and face off in a lip-sync battle for their charities. After all was said and done, it was a tie. Finally, the two queens gave each other their extra badges. Taylor the Latte Boy, did the right queens win the challenge? Should the lip-sync have been a tie? And did the right queens get the extra badges? Take that one by one for me.
Okay. So what was the first question? Did the right queens win the challenge?
Yeah, the right queens win the challenge.
There is some controversy in this house about that because I think absolutely Georgeous should have won. I think that she should have been one of the top two. Shannel, you went into it kind of knowing, well, this is Shannel's week. This is clear. And they were definitely telegraphing that through the entire Rusical, and they were constantly showing Jorgeous and Shannel. Mm-hmm. However, I think it should have been Georgeous versus Vanjie. I thought Vanjie did an amazing job for the short amount of time that she was on screen. Mm-hmm. She definitely was captivating. And that's not something I normally say about Vanjie, but my husband said that he thought Nina, it should have been. Okay. But as I just listened to the episode that you were on with, or that Nathan was on with you a couple of weeks ago, and you were all talking about the fact that, my husband has the big pants for Nina West, I was sort of like, well, that's just because you have a crush on Nina West. But I didn't think Nina did anything necessarily out of the ordinary. But so to answer the first question, yes and no, the right queens were. Okay. Should it have been a tie? Mm-hmm. Yes, because they were both lackluster. It was not a great lip sync as far as I'm concerned. So it felt she was pitting two mental health organizations against each other and just we'll just cut it in half and give it to you both. So because I also think Ru on some level knew, like if you had to pick one, I think Georgeous outdid Shannel. But it felt very much of the you're going to get Shannel that close and then you're going to take it away from her. Sort of like it was not. That would have just been mean.
There's also the thing where didn't Shannel never win a challenge on her season?
No, she won a challenge on her season.
Oh, she did? I don't know anything.
She did, and I am positive that she and Chad had to have won at least one on All Stars 1. So
look, I haven't watched season 1 since 2009. I watched it when it first aired. I didn't watch it since.
Yeah.
And then, did the right queens get the extra badges? They gave it to each other.
I think, I guess the fact that they did it was interesting because if they keep this in the future, you're going to eventually see where one girl is going to give her badge to somebody thinking it's going to be reciprocated, and then it's not. So we've kind of set the baseline for that. You were kind of feeling, especially at the beginning of this episode, that Shannel was checked out. Like whenever they did the thing where they all had to make reactions to things, she just kind of looked like, whatever. I've only got another couple of these, then I can go back to my Christmas house. But
yeah,
I think that this re-energized her in some ways. So that made me a little happy to see, because I like Shannel. I do like Shannel.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think from a storyline standpoint that was very cool that they did that, especially because it was talked about earlier in the season with Nina and Gottmik, and they didn't do it. So it was, that seed was planted a while back, and now we're seeing seeing that come to fruition this week. What do you think about all the lip sync and all that?
Yeah. Did the right queens win the challenge? I think I'm closer to Babalu's point of view. I think I was maybe thinking, even though you're making a good argument for Vanjie, because she was quite good. I think I'm in agreement basically that for sure Georgeous, it's up in the air who should have won that other one. Okay, there's that. Next question. Should the lip sync have been a tie? I'm with you again. They were very close. They were very mid for me as well. I think though I would have given the edge to Shannel, because it's just fun to see that old school style of drag and lip syncing. Now Roxy, of course, does it way better than Shannel. But I think it's cool to see that style of lip syncing. And then did the right queens get the extra badges? Sure. I think it's funny that basically Shannel made Georgeous from like mid tier to now a front runner. You know, because now she has 4 badges, and now Shannel has 2. So I think it truly is, everything's up for grabs. So it's gonna be funny how they try and give it to Roxy. They have to give it to Roxy, right?
I think that's where they're leading us to, but I was thinking about it after I watched the show. I was sitting there going, have I become Team Georgeous? Like, do I think that Georgeous could actually walk away with everything?
I want to have sex with Georgeous so badly.
I know you do. I just heard that where you said you wanted to eat her ass for hours. I just heard that episode.
There were some outfits she wore today that I was dying. But you know what's so funny is I know she'd be... what's funny, I think I'd be disappointing for her. I think she's used to like a fire pole up her ass.
Yeah.
And so she would be like, what is this? No. And so... How
am I supposed to gape with this?
Yeah. Now, I still want to marry David Archuleta. That's still happening. But
I don't get that one.
Oh, he's his husband.
Think he was cute. He's there's something about him now that he just looks like he needs a bath.
I could see that. I don't know. Now, I have some comments I just want to make him now, so I'll make them at the end about the lip sync. One, when they were going to choose the top 2, and Nina once again is in she's in a gigantic outfit with like super high heels on. You're like, what clown show does she have prepared for today?
What the Joanne Worley are we looking at right now?
Yeah. And here, I wonder if Nina goes to bed at night kicking herself again, that if she would have just given Shannel the extra badge. There are so many, like Roxy wouldn't have had 4. Shannel probably would have given her the extra badge. What a horrible, horrible mistake Nina made there. And then finally, do you know who this did? I never, I don't follow this stuff, but I feel you do. I didn't know who Christine W was. Did you know who she was?
Yes, I have. Okay. She was a big dance artist in the late 90s. Okay. That's when I'm familiar with her stuff. And she did a remake that is one of my like all-time favorite. It reminds me of going out to clubs in the late 90s. Do you remember the movie 54 that Mike Myers was in and all that? She did the theme song to that, which
was there anybody else in that movie besides Ryan Phillip? Because I think we can all agree he was stunting in that movie.
Well, Breckin Meyer was pretty cute in that movie too.
I didn't even know he was in it.
Okay. Well, Breckenmeyer. And they had a kiss scene that was apparently cut from the original movie. But you can find that scene online anyplace. But anyway, getting back to Christine W. She and Ultra Nate and somebody else, Jocelyn Enriquez, I think, they did a cover of If You Could Read My Mind, the old song from the 70s that was like a modern dance version.
Read my mind.
So, and it is like the dance version of that, I think the Thunderpuss remix of it is one of my all-time favorite like dance songs, and it's on my workout playlist, and it's a fun song to listen to.
Well,
but yes.
What is it with late 90s gay club disco singers that they always only use their middle initial?
That was just a thing back then.
Yeah, was it weird? I don't know. Good. Wait, so have you seen Alaska on social media lately?
I've seen like clips from Race Chasers.
I don't watch Race Chaser or anything, but she has had so much filler. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, she looks like a completely different person now. She
was
here.
She acknowledges?
Not on the show. She hasn't.
Oh.
She was here for St. Pete Pride a couple weeks ago, and apparently it was not well attended.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The main bar, one of the main bars here in St. Pete is called Cocktail. And they have a pool because it's attached to a hotel. And she apparently hosted like not a pool party, but like a thing but by the pool. But like they didn't promote it at all.
Oh, so not her fault. Yeah.
Right. But they that was the same with everything. A guy that we're friends with happened to walk past. They had like a bar out on the main strip on the Sunday morning thing. And he was like, well, let's see if there's any queens performing and see what's going on. Alyssa Edwards is up there performing. Yeah. And like to like not crowds and crowds of people. It was just sort of a like, there's Alyssa Edwards.
There was a drama at that performance, I believe.
Well, I feel like there's always a drama with Alyssa Edwards.
Yeah, something happened on stage. I remember I saw it on social media. I don't remember what it was. All right, why don't we do this? Why don't we take a break? And when we come back, we are actually going to talk about the rest of the episode. We'll be back right after this.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
And we are back. After the lip sync, Roxy celebrates her win. Plastique has yet to win money for her charity, and the girls discuss how they all still have a chance to make it to the finale. The next day, Georgeous feels gapey, and the dolls count the badges before RuPaul walks into the workroom to announce this week's Maxi Challenge. It's a Rusical. In a send-up of horror films, the girls must sing and dance in Rosemarie's baby shower. In the workroom, the girls get to work casting the show. Gottmik relates to horror films as a trans person. Shannel has never done a Rusical. Georgeous feels she has something to prove. And Nigeria and Nina vie for the same role, but Nina wins when her name is drawn from a hat. The cast played out as follows, by the way. And we can talk about this here. We have Gottmik as Blair from The Exorcist. Georgeous is Morgan. Instead of Megan, the robot. Shannel is Sydney. I don't know what the name of the character is in Rosemary's Baby. She's like the neighbor, like the nosy neighbor, right?
Yeah.
Nina is Dr. Poltergeist, which I thought this was, we can talk about this during the actual performance, but like clearly a send-up of Zelda Rubinstein, who played the little person that was the exorcist, or I don't know what you call her, but the expert that got back to people in Poltergeist.
Yeah, she was like a paranormal expert.
Yeah. You have Nigeria as Ruth. Again, I didn't get what that name was.
I got that one.
What was that?
Ruth, the neighbor in Rosemary's Baby, was played by Ruth Gordon.
Oh,
so
okay, yeah.
When they said Sydney, I was like, I don't know who the other person is, but I can look that up now while you're reading that off.
Plastique was Rosemarie, which, okay, let's debate this here. Maybe there's a younger person, but I think we know who writes these things. They're talking about Rosemarie from the Dick Van Dyke Show, right? Is there another Rosemarie?
No, I think it was just they probably didn't want to take the chance of saying Rosemarie's baby shower, that it would have been.
And then the old queen there was like, well, what about Rosemarie from the Dick Van Dyke Show?
Yeah.
Unless there's another, if people can tell me there's another Rosemarie in gay pop culture, let me know.
No, Sydney Blackmer.
Oh, okay. So they use the actresses' names.
Well, it was an actor.
Oh, an actor.
Yeah.
Oh. I haven't seen Rosemary's Baby in a long time. I own it. Again, on my $4.99 iTunes special. It was $4.99. I bought it.
I have never seen it.
You know what? You know what's so funny? I have seen it. I saw it. I think I TiVo'd it when I was. How long ago was it? TiVo was still a thing. And it cut off the very last scene, and I never went back to go look at what happened in the very last scene. So maybe I'll watch it tonight. Yeah. Vanjie played the baby, and then Roxy on a play on it. Pennywise is Hennywise, and so that's who the cast was. All right, let's break this down now. After the lip sync, everything that happens after the lip sync, we covered that. Did you have any notes on everything that happens after the lip sync, Taylor?
I think the conversation where they didn't do a big long lead up to Angeria walking back in. They all just kind of sat down, and then she immediately came in afterwards.
Yeah, and
I was glad to see there seemed to be a level of we don't have to do this anymore, so everybody seemed relieved. Even like she didn't come in with the whole, well, this one hurts a lot, and Roxy, it was very matter of fact to me. Like, look, it's an eye for an eye, and that's why I did what I did. And even when she said, do you think we would have just gone back and forth, to which Roxy was like, not if you weren't going to cut me, know. So I think that part of it, and the fact that they all know the show well enough to go, something else is coming, that this can't just be now where we're all going to be walking in nature with children. The next day, with the explanation of what the challenge was of the week, I didn't get the whole like Gottmik making the weird like rar thing and sort of like growling at Roxy and doing like this whole like scary monster sort of it got on my nerves this episode, but she always gets on my nerves. But it was particularly, I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense at all to me.
Gottmik, I don't want to get another Gottmik rant. I feel like every week I do some sort of Gottmik rant. Okay, let's go back to after the elimination. I'm sorry, after the lip sync. Roxy comes in and she goes, I just won 4 badges. I'm like, no, somebody gave you one. Plastique won her 4th badge. Mm-hmm. You got your 3rd badge and somebody gave you that. And she goes, you can't say shit to the 4 badge queens. And once again, Roxy's won 3 and was gifted 1. That's like saying like if Shannel came in and was like, I have 2 badges. I'm like, no, you have 1 badge, right?
You earned 1 badge.
You earned 1 badge.
Yeah.
Then later on, they're asking Plastique who she would have, snipped. And she said, oh, for sure I wouldn't have done Angeria because she, saved me the week before. But then she goes, but I don't know who I would have. Bull fucking shit. I want to call bullshit. And they know exactly who they were going to snip. There's no, on regular All-Stars with the choosing the lipsticks, there's no way you can lie because they know who you picked,
Right.
On this, they can just, I don't know who I would have snipped. And there's no way anyone can prove it wrong.
I think that was the best diplomatic answer that she could have given.
Yeah.
Everybody was playing nice, so why stir the pot a little bit? Actually, you talking about this brought up something else. She talked about the fact that she hasn't won any money for her charity yet.
Yeah.
And that just seemed like a plot line that went nowhere this episode.
Yeah.
Like she just kind of said it, and then you thought, oh, well, maybe this is the week that she wins something. And nope, that wasn't the case.
No. They're not going to get any money. But I saw this thing online, and I don't know if this is true. I did no fact checking. I just believed whatever I saw online. But people saying that the charity, and they even were saying they didn't think Plastique was aware at the time. And I think at the time, the problematic things from that charity have come up after she filmed this. but that this organization is kind of right wing.
The AAPI, isn't that the Asian American?
No, it's whatever the Asian. I don't know what it is. Look, I told you I did no fact checking. I was like, ooh, and then I just moved on with my life. I didn't do anything.
And you're not gonna.
No, I'm not doing fact checking.
Drag Race recap raw.
Yeah. It's raw. I'm not gonna do anything. You know, usually I'd go back in the edit and just re-record me saying something else and put it and make it seem like. No,
nope,
not gonna do
none
anything.
of that. None of that.
By the way, I did something unusual this week, and I think it's funny because I wouldn't say it came back to bite me in the ass, but now there are things that are wrong, here, because I'm writing notes as I'm watching it. And I wrote, I think both people should give it to Shannel. Like, I was already assuming Shannel was not going to win. And I was like, oh, it keeps out the competition, and it's a nice thing to do. So I have that note here, but whatever. Okay, let's go to that workroom. Unless you have more things to say about everything pre-RuPaul walking in or announcing or anything.
No, that's enough.
So actually, as much as I criticize Gottmik, I actually really liked her pointing out that the reason, I know gays love horror films, and I know horror films are big with queer people, but I never realized the importance with trans people, and they relate to the monsters because society shuns them and all this. And I was like, oh, that's a really interesting take, because I had heard something similar about The Little Mermaid too, with trans women that that they identify with The Little Mermaid. Did you have any thoughts on what Gottmik said there about trans people relating to this?
I guess when she said it, I was a little confused by it. I'm not a big horror. I've never been a horror fan at all. And I am surprised when, I'm on Scruff and with people who have interests, how many men love horror films, which I'm like, well, that's not a topic I know anything about. The analogy that Gottmik used, I think, works in some ways, but in other ways, I'm sort of like, well, I don't see myself as the monster in those movies that's just trying to live my life. I like to think of myself as somebody that's not a monster, but I also get why certain people would maybe see themselves or see themselves portrayed by Freddy Krueger or Michael Myers or Norman Bates or whatever.
Going back to the horror, you just made me realize something. It's probably one of the only genres. I can't think of another one off the top of my head. Oh, science fiction I could see being like this. Or fantasy, something like those along those lines, where the genre is so identified with a person that you'll introduce to people who are into that. So like, for instance, I have some friends who John Paul and Chris and Mercedes have a friend that is really into horror films.
Right.
I've never met him. But both of them have told me independently, like, oh, you guys should meet because you both love horror movies. Okay. And so that's the only genre where you're like, oh, you love, people can bond over. I think comic books and fantasy and all those are the same thing. But like, I think it's super interesting. Yeah, I love horror movies. I love them.
What is it that you like about horror movies?
Well, I will say, because sometimes people will try and talk to me about like slasher movies. I'm not necessarily super into slasher movies or like, I'm more like a psychological horror film or like a supernatural horror film. I'll speak to supernatural. There's something, there's two things actually I'm going to say. One, especially supernatural horror films, I don't know, I just really like, they really tap into some sort of fear I have about the supernatural. And then two, I have a particular fondness. I like all horror movies, especially supernatural ones. But I have a real fondness for like horror movies from like the 1970s or late 60s. There's something about the look. Like, for instance, there's a horror movie called Let's Scare Jessica to Death.
I've heard that title before.
Okay. And it's from the 70s. It's actually not that good, right? But there's something about the look of a 1970s film, the feel of it, that makes it kind of scarier. Even if the movie is not that good, I like that look. I feel like it makes it feel scary,
Yeah. When we were kids, when my sister and I were kids, and our next door neighbors, both of which turned out to be gay as well. we were watching, they would do like the 8:00 movie on one of the local UHF channels, which tells you how long ago this was. And for some reason, we all decided that we were going to watch it, and it was Burnt Offerings.
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, like a good version of the 1970s. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Fucked me up
as
a kid. The worst part of it, though, was the chauffeur. The chauffeur that was in it. He was super, super creepy. And every time they showed him, we would all scream. Because, again,
Burnt
3 little gay boys.
Yeah, if you want to see a movie that's exactly what I'm talking about, it's supernatural and it's 1970s. Burnt Offerings is an amazing one. Burnt Offerings is about this family that rents a house, I feel like upstate New York or something like that, right?
Something like that, yeah.
And for really cheap, this like stately home, and they get it for really cheap from like a brother and sister, like an old brother and sister. And basically the brother and sister, like, for the summer, they rent it for the summer. And the brother and sister leave. And they just say, it's cheap, but the only thing is you have to feed our mother who lives on the top floor, but she's like shy and you won't ever see her or something, right?
Yeah.
And then as the movie progresses, people start, because the house is kind of run down and shoddy. But, and this is what's the best part about it, is people, and it gets progressively worse and worse, but people start to like hurt themselves in the house. Like they might cut themselves or break a leg or who knows what.
Yeah.
But every time someone gets hurt, the house gets more and more beautiful.
Right.
Yes, and then it has a crazy ending. Yeah.
Yes, it has a really great, which I didn't remember. A couple of years ago, I went to the Wikipedia page and read the whole thing because I remembered certain scenes from it, and it had Betty Davis was in it.
Oh yeah, Betty Davis in it. Yeah, 100%.
And Karen Black, who was like Karen a staple of 70s like schlocky movies.
Yes,
and Oliver Reed.
Yes,
no, Oliver Reed.
Is Oliver Reed? Is he the husband?
Is that his name, or is Oliver Reed the guy that was in the Iran-Contra hearings? That was Oliver North.
Oliver North.
Yeah, no, Oliver Reed was the husband in it.
Yeah. Guys, that's a good one to check out. Another one, you just said that and reminded me of another one. You know what's a movie I was thinking about? I was telling John Paul and I saw each other the other day, and I have a story to tell you. But John Paul and I saw each other the other day, and we went to go see The Talented Mr. Ripley, which I'd never seen, and we saw it at the Academy Museum in LA. There's a reason I'm telling you.
That's a great movie.
I'd never seen it. So then, but we were talking that we were having dinner before, and I just remembered there is a movie that is super fucking gay coded. Gays would love this movie, and it is fantastic, and I can't believe it's not more famous than it is. It's by Douglas Sirk, and it's a director, and it's called All That Heaven Allows. And it is so fucking good. Like the gays who know, they know. It's an orange drink, right? If you know, you know. But All That Heaven Allows, if you see this movie, it is so good. It is so gay coded. It is so good. I can't believe it's not up there with like Sunset Boulevard and like All About Eve. It is.
I've heard the title before, but I don't.
Yeah.
Well, you were getting ready to talk about Let's Scare Jessica to Death, and we went off on a tangent
there's
about
nothing there with that. But because Burnt Offerings is a better example. But I want to talk about Talented Mr. Ripley. I had never seen it. It's one of John Paul's favorite movies. We went to the Academy Museum. Neither one of us had been to the movie theater in the Academy Museum. It is a beautiful theater. But we got there a little early. We're sitting in our seats waiting for it to start. And then John Paul like elbows me. And I look. And it's George Takei and his husband are there. Oh my God, Taylor. George Takei is so old now.
He's got to be in his 80s, I would think, at this point.
I think he's maybe even 90, right? How old is he now? If he's not 90, he is knocking on the door of 90.
How old is George Takei? 87.
Oh, he looks 97. Like, because George Takei used to pride himself with about how, like, sort of fit and active he was, and he had that like old man shuffle and like still with it. People were going up and talking to him and whatnot, but just it was sad to see. But Talented Mr. Ripley, it was good. Matt Damon, it's so weird. I thought, I'm gonna think he's so hot in this movie, right? But actually, for the most part, I don't until he starts dressing like Jude Law. And I was like, hi, Matt Damon. But I think that was intentional. Thank you. That was the Joe and Taylor's movie corner. Okay. I want to talk about Vanjie's bit that she did at the couch where she was like talking about her, like something about having to do with Nina being cast and versus Angeria. And they were busting up, and I'm like, is there something I'm missing here? Because this is not that funny. And the way they were guffawing at Vanjie mugging, it was like not that good. Nina, what does this mean? Nina should get it because she was snipped.
Nina should get the role because she was snipped? Or Angeria should get it because she was snipped?
Oh, I think no. I got it. The she was Angeria. That okay. Nina should get the role because Angeria was snipped. So it doesn't really matter so much, if she wins, she should give it to somebody who needs the win more.
Well,
I think is what the point is.
I think having watched it now, they should have switched roles. It should have been, because you would have had more of a you would have gotten with Dr. Poltergeist if Angeria did Dr. Poltergeist, that Southern Baptist, the big hat, she would have played that completely differently than Nina did. Yeah. And I think Nina and Shannel would have made a more cohesive choice as a couple of sisters. Yeah. That they could have done the very New York, kind of cigarette smoking type thing, that versus these two characters that were supposedly sisters that acted very differently. Because, Angeria always sort of plays Angeria. But it would have made more sense for those two roles to have switched.
Do you think the Zelda Rubinstein joke would have come across, though, if Angeria was playing her?
Which Zelda? Was there a Zelda Rubinstein joke?
Yeah, the Dr. Poltergeist.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, Vanjie played an adult baby. We didn't have to, it didn't necessarily matter if they... if it worked.
I don't care if I guess you're right. Who cares? Like, by the way, I might be the only one who knew that woman's name, right?
I just, the Poltergeist lady. That's when you said Zelda Rubinstein, then I was like, oh yeah, no, that was her name. But I couldn't remember her name either.
Oh, she was so good. She was so good.
She was awesome.
All right, let's move on here. Let's see if I have other things to say. All right, no, you don't. On the main stage recording studio, Shannel has never sung professionally. Gottmik and Nina impress the mentors in the cast. Georgeous amuses everyone, and Jerry exposes her nipple. Plastique gives sex. Roxy makes everyone laugh. Vanjie struggles with her lyrics, and Angeria falls asleep. On the main stage dance floor, Miguel Zarate leads the girls in some dance moves. Vanjie finds the moves easy. Nina finds the moves challenging. Roxy laughs at how advanced the moves are. Mick needs to believe in herself more. Georgeous impresses Miguel. Angeria wants Miguel's attention, and Plastique just moves, and Shannel has a nightmare, and it's this choreo. Your thoughts on the recording session? Your thoughts on the choreo session, Taylor?
This recording session with Michelle was, you can tell this is an all-star season, especially everybody's going to make nice with each other, because there was no, with the exception of Vanjie not being able to get that one word, there was no shade rattle. There was no everybody looking at each other like, oh, or when they did, everybody was laughing about it. It wasn't the usual like, oh, this isn't going to be good.
Yeah. Like some sort of like really like actual coming from a mean place. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that also sort of bled through on the choreography. Miguel seemed, he was not, oh my God, what's the choreographer that we love?
Jamal Sims.
He wasn't Jamal Sims, but he wasn't that one whose name we do not speak. It felt like he was a little closer to the center of the two of those.
Oh, really?
I just, there was a couple of times where I feel like he threw a little bit of shade, or it was there wasn't the supportive of the, stop looking at me, look at your line, whereas we don't normally see that. We definitely don't see that with Jamal. Yeah. And I mean, the other one, he would, whatever. But I wasn't as big of a fan of him as I am when Jamal is the choreographer.
Oh, I liked him. Jamal, I think is better, but I still liked him.
Yeah. I didn't dislike him. I just, you kind of, when she says with choreographer, you kind of say, please say Jamal Sims, please say Jamal Sims. And when she said somebody else, I was sort of like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Why are everyone's teeth so fucking white? Like, everyone's teeth are so white.
Because they all knew that, because they all got a $50,000 stipend.
Well, the other thing too is at this stage too, if you didn't make your teeth that white, then your teeth, even if they were normal white color, even kind of nice, you would look like you had the yellowest teeth of all time
compared to everybody else.
Yeah. I whiten my teeth from time to time, but I only do it so that it's normal white, not even white. Like, yeah, that's being that white. It draws attention to it. I also like they do this thing. They've always done this thing. I probably talked about this before, but I like that they do this thing. Like Dracula does this too. But you're like, okay, well they have a low budget. They record it on the main stage, and then they come back as if they left the room and went to another room. But it's the main stage again for the choreo session.
Yeah, but it could have been they recorded before lunch versus after lunch, or or they could have done them in reverse. Later in the day when your vocal cords are a little more warmed up, maybe they did something like that. I mean, I get that they're not just going to have them all sit there while they, take the soundboard off and unplug everything and then, move everybody around.
I want them to sit there. I want to watch that. Okay, let's talk about that Rusical, Rosemarie's baby shower, the Rusical. Did you have any big thoughts? I have a lot of notes on this. But what was your big, before we get into the weeds of this, what was your big overall impression of the Rusical?
It was enjoyable. It was definitely, they were all talking about how it was, just this amazing and everybody was perfect. And I would agree. I think everybody did an excellent job. There was no standout bad performances.
Yeah.
I also like the fact that it is something different.
Yes.
It's not based on a pop diva. It's not, it's something that speaks to a gay of a certain generation versus something that would be more, Pretty Little Lies, the Rusical, or something ridiculous like that. Why I picked that show, I have no idea. But I enjoyed the whole thing. Was it my favorite? I don't know if that it was my favorite, but it's up there. What about you?
I agree with you. I think for the most part, it was very good. I think that this guy that they hired, David Steinberg, he's done things before. He did... I looked up his website and you could see what he's done for Drag Race before. I think he did Trump the Rusical. Is that one? Was that one?
That was one. That was one that Nina was in because Nina played Sarah Huckabee.
He did that one. He did a couple other things, but for them. But it felt like a real musical. The music felt like a real musical. I feel like they tried using Leland and Freddie for that stuff and it doesn't work. And I feel it felt like a real musical. The lyrics were good. The music was on point. The queens did a great job capturing their characters. The dancing was good. Yeah, across the board, it was good. I don't have as much of a memory for all the Rusicals. So if they say, "Oh, it's the best one ever," and I'm like, okay. If they say it's not, then I'm like, okay. But for me personally, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay.
Now let's get into the weeds. Did you have any specific thoughts about this Rusical?
Let's see. Going by each performer, not really. I didn't like. To me, Roxy wasn't in drag. Roxy was just in a Pennywise costume. To me, like a flashy Pennywise costume. It wasn't draggy to me. I think it really didn't get draggy until she started doing the voguing, where she was kind of almost sort of doing the duck walk and stuff. I also I thought the least efficient use of a character would have been Blair, would have been Gottmix. I just kind of felt like, okay, that was all right. It was, but even then, she still did well. I just don't think she did as well as some of the other people that were there. And I also think that Vanjie, like I said, Vanjie was the breakout to me, where you were kind of waiting to see the baby and everything. And I thought the outfit she came in was really great looking, and she kept up with the dancing and her singing, and everything was just really wonderful about it. But for them making such a big deal about Georgeous being worried that she's if I'm too animated, then they're going to say that I wasn't necessarily being like a robot. But if I go very too robot, then they're going to say that I wasn't feeling the, I thought that she hit it out of the park. She was great. She did all of the Megan dance moves and everything was great.
Yeah, she did a good job. I think she worried, but it was for nothing. I think they would have understood she was doing a robot. But she did a good. She pulled it off.
Well, you would think, but with this judging panel where they say,
true.
They say things because whatever goes along with the storyline, you don't know.
Yeah. Plastique's a terrible actress. I thought I was writing this as we went, but I said the first number was good and Jerry and Shannel were good, which they were. Plastique number I thought was fine. Plastique was sort of the weak spot for me, if I'm being honest.
I can see that.
So this originates with Tom Bombs, and maybe they said this on Reddit too. I don't know, but I saw it on our Discord where Tom Bombs wrote. Tom Bombs, by the way, single-handedly keeping the Discord alive. Like, no one's writing lately. I think because they're all mad at me. But no one's writing lately. And Tom Bombs is the only one. He's like the one person who's writing. Like, when you hear about these like small towns and there's like one guy who like keeps all the lights on and makes sure the pipes don't rust. It's Tom Bombs. Anyway, he noted that Roxy looked just like Nina. And I go, you know what? She did. But I already saw it before I watched the episode. And Roxy looks so much like Nina West in that Hennywise outfit.
Hennywise.
And I thought Georgeous was good. So those were my notes on the Rusical. So those were like sort of the standouts for me. Next, they actually did something unusual. They did the main challenge and then they did the runway day. Did you have any big thoughts on I'm going to read it right here. It's runway day and the girls get ready for the main stage. The girls feel proud of their performance. Nina validates Shannel. Shannel reflects on letting stuff go last week. The girls stay silent when asked who they would give their extra badge to, except for Jorgeous, who says she will give it to Shannel. Later, Angeria suggests that the two winners could give the extra badges to each other. Take out the latte boy. Any thoughts on this runway day?
I think that this isn't going to be nice, but whatever. I think part of the reason that Shannel won. One, she did a good job, and she stayed in character the whole time. But I think she finally gave her penance to Rue last week for having left season 1. Yeah,
I was betting Rue didn't. Oh, but you know what? Go ahead. So say what you're going to say, Taylor.
Because I think that was the first. Well, obviously, it was season 1, but that was the first time anybody did anything like that, and the fact that Shannel basically said, I've always felt like a failure for having left the show and all that kind of stuff, is basically just sucking Rue's dick.
So I think I know it was Robert, but I think it was on Rulaska Thoughts, or maybe it was off the air, but that would make me be weird that he discussed Drag Race with me off the air. But he mentioned that he's sick of Shannel telling this story that she left the show. Because he said that what happened is they asked Shannel who should go home, and Shannel volunteered herself. But then Shannel went through the entire process. She lip synced for her life. She went through the whole thing. It wasn't like she pulled is it Lemony Mnemone or whatever? Who's the one from England who just walked off the stage?
Lemony Snicket or whatever.
I don't know what his name was. So it's not like he did that, he it's not like Shannel did that. So Robert said that she's been saying this for years. She said this in All Stars 1, that she's saying it here, but this is some story that Shannel tells that she left the show when the reality is she went through the entire process as one would and she got eliminated. Anyway, I just wanted to give Robert's point right there for him. Okay, well, Runway Day, I have almost really no notes, to be honest with you. And everything in the notes that I had, I said already. Let's go to the runway. Bring back my pearls. I watched it. I liked it. Did you have any thoughts, Taylor?
I thought that just about everybody their outfits were all beautiful. It was something, I'm not necessarily, a big Pearl fan. Mm-hmm. On season 7 or just in general, but I thought that the dresses, I thought Angeria's was beautiful. I'm trying to think of who else. Plastique's was actually not my favorite. I usually get very excited to see what Plastique's going to bring. This week, again, kind of like I said, I thought Vanjie looked great with the big seashell collar around her. was really great. And Nina's was okay. Nina's wasn't great, but I thought everybody else looked really, really pretty. And even that, like, Nina looked pretty and Plastique looked pretty. They just weren't my favorites.
Yeah. All right, very good. I don't have any thoughts, to be honest. I liked it. Back on the main stage, RuPaul names Shannel and Georgeous as the top 2 All-Stars of the week. Alone on the stage, they face off in a lip-sync battle for their charities. In the end, RuPaul calls the lip-sync a tie, and they both win money for their charities. Next, RuPaul calls the cast back on stage and asks Jorgeous and Shannel to name whom they will give their badges to. Jorgeous names Shannel, while Shannel names Georgeous. This leaves Shannel with 2 badges and Georgeous with 4 badges, and now in the top. Taylor the Latte Boy, any final thoughts on the episode?
I loved how excited everybody was for Shannel.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed that seemed genuine.
Mm-hmm.
And how everybody was, I think because they didn't have to worry about being snipped, that everybody was so excited for the 2 of them to lip sync, like, because they were all like, good luck, you're going to have a great time, you know, all of that sort of thing up there. So that was actually pretty nice to see.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting that they had them do the pins right away. Who are you giving the pin to, sort of thing. But I guess because they didn't do that with the first set of pins that they gave away. They waited till the next week to do it.
Yeah.
So there wasn't necessarily the suspense over the next week of who's going to give each other which badges. Mm-hmm. And I kept waiting for there to be some other thing. Babalu had a really interesting theory last week that he thought was going to start happening this week now that the scissors gone, was that the winner would get to take away a pin from somebody else.
They should do that, but yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. Talk about cutthroat.
Yeah.
That could get real ugly real fast, which makes for great television, especially for a mid all-star season like we're dealing with now.
Yeah, I gave all my thoughts. I gave all my notes, but that's a really good theory. They should do something like that. That would make it more interesting, more cutthroat.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, Taylor?
No, I think I've said everything.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of RuPaul's Drag Race Recap. Be sure to join us next weekend, every week, as we continue to discuss, dissect, and deconstruct each brand new episode of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars Season 9. So for Taylor the Latte Boy and myself,
sashay away until next week.
Thank you for listening to Drag Race Recap. Have something to say? Leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/afterthoughtmedia. You can also email us at dragracerecap@afterthought.media. For more Drag Race and LGBTQ content, support us over at patreon.com/afterthoughtmedia. This podcast was produced by Sabrina Vadabuncourt. Taylor the Latte Boy has another podcast. It's called Pod Is My Co-Pilot. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow Taylor on Instagram at PIMC Taylor. Follow Joe Batance on Instagram at Joe Batance. Special thanks to these expensive tier Patreon supporters: Anonymous, April Pacheco, Astute Girl, Brad Coley, Doofus Maximus, Effie Wop, E. Smith, Emma, Vilsket Pony, Flying Suki, Humble Pine, Isaac Martin, J. Thomas Plank, Kathy Zender, Lauren Eckert, Lucy Carrasco, Luke Stamen, Mary S., Matt Stewart, Mike Yeager, Mickey Baker, Poppy Woods, Ricardo the Herrera, Robert NYC, Sarah Yu, Runner Brandon, Tom Bombs, Travi Cosmos, and Troy Anderson. Drag Race Recap is an Afterthought Media podcast.